Hello, everybody. And I have missed you all. I haven't been on the call for a couple of weeks, and I feel super excited today because when I miss these sessions, it really makes me feel that I'm missing out. A little bit of FOMO, fear of missing out, but hey, we're back. So, welcome to our weekly session of Mindset Matters. It's a 30-minute jam-packed call, and with my co-host Maher, who I'd love to introduce a very special person who I have worked with closely, have learned a lot from. I'm super grateful to share this platform with Maher. He brings a rare combination of business experience, discipline, leadership, and heart. And he owns and operates so many businesses from so many different backgrounds, like investments, real estate, building companies around people and communities. And what I really appreciate most is that he's real. He's not just theory, he talks from real time experience with consistency, the genuine desire to help people grow. And so, as we begin another session, the fourth session, and goodness me, where's the time gone? I encourage you to just listen carefully and see if you can take one thing away. And what I'm going to say is, Maher, what you had on the screen today when we came in was something I actually need to add to my personal standards. So over to you, Maher, and I'm sure everybody's going to benefit massively.
Thank you, Shazia. Well, first of all, welcome back, and I can't believe we're halfway through our 8 sessions. I'd like to welcome everybody on this call. Many blessings to each and every one of you. Thank you for being on this call. Thank you for supporting Shazia and I and QMinds and QBN and what we do. What we do is give back, and we try to, from our knowledge and our experience, help others. And Shazia, I want to hand it back to you because you've done an amazing job in what with Q Minds and everything that you've accomplished. You know, you're a doctor, PhD, Dr. Shazia Hussain, as we call you, in education, many accomplishments, many certifications, an entrepreneur yourself, and a very powerful woman. And very well deserved to be here as my co-host as we do this together. So thank you again for everything you do and for being my co-host.
Yes, thank you,
Today's
Maher.
session is a very powerful session, and I think it's a continuation of last week's session about our discipline over motivation, because the power of personal standards is very, very important to each and every one of us. You know, uh, Discipline helps you stay consistent, but what personal standards do, it establishes a level you refuse to fall below. Yes or no? So your life will rarely rise above the standards you consistently live by, right? Think about that for a second. Your life will rarely rise above the standards you consistently live by. So you can set goals for yourself. Okay. A goal says, I would like to achieve this, but the standard says, this is how I live. So are you living in accordance to your goal? You can write your goals every day, all day long, every night. But if you're not living, if you don't set your standards according to the goals you set, then it's going to be very challenging to achieve those goals. Yes or no, Shazia? I mean, how um,
I agree. I was actually making note of that when I was coming on. I actually wrote down my first top five personal standards because I felt that coming on, Maya's going to ask me this. What are they? And then I was just thinking, just like you said, it's what do you tolerate, in alignment with your personal standards? Because sometimes we tolerate, we have when we've got our goals and then we have standards and something comes in the middle and we kind of shift to become a pleaser. And there's nothing wrong with becoming a pleaser, but not at the expense of it impacting your goals.
Most people have goals. They want better health, stronger relationships, greater confidence, financial success. We're all here for financial success as well. More meaningful lives. We say that these sessions help you not just on the personal growth, but professional growth as well. So, wanting something does not mean we have established it as a standard. Okay. So just some important distinctions, and I'm gonna share this on a little PowerPoint that I put together. But goals are destinations. Discipline is the vehicle, Standards determine the condition in which you are willing to travel. Okay.
Love that.
Yeah, goals are the destination. So we talked about goals. Then last week we talked about discipline. That's the vehicle. Now today, the standards determine the condition in which you are willing to travel. Okay. So, we often judge ourselves by our intentions, but life responds to our repeated actions, what we do every single day. You know, my health is important. Well, a lot of us continually neglect to eat right. We're drinking those soft drinks we said we were going to give up. My family come first, but are you really always there, fully present? I want success. Are you accepting inconsistencies and excuses? I'm a leader. Are you avoiding difficult conversations and those challenging moments? So I'm not here to make anybody feel guilty. I want everyone to just to be honest with yourself, just as I am with myself. I hold myself accountable. We had a session about, talking to your inner voice and controlling your inner voice. So just, be honest with yourself. So here's three actions that I put together. Examine your patterns instead of your promises. Okay. Identify where your actions contradict what you say. Choose one area where your minimum acceptable behavior must change. Okay. So don't only ask, why do I want to change? Ask, what am I no longer willing to accept for myself? Okay. This is what setting personal standards is all about. Shazia, do you want to add anything to what I just said on
An
that particular?
example to that. I remember based on what you just said about, the conditions and what standards you set for yourself. And I remember going to meet somebody, and it was about my one of my businesses. And one of my standards, and it's written here in front of me, is integrity and honesty. That's my standard number one. And I knew that when the gentleman put a proposal on the table, he said, Shazia, just tell me, do you want to go slow or do you want to go fast? Right. And I knew what that meant, that he was trying to influence me to want to go fast, which meant I would have to compromise on my standards. And for a split second, ladies and gentlemen, I did slip and I thought, sounds a little bit juicy. Wouldn't mind going a bit fast there. And then I had to pause and reflect and think, not really, that's gonna how it's gonna impact me. And the visualization that came into my mind was that if I give in what this gentleman is asking me to, I lose control of what I have and I will become the Muppet and he will start pulling my strings. And then I will no longer be the independent person, the freedom code that I wanted. And I said no. So that's my example there to what you have just said about maintaining
Fantastic,
those.
fantastic example. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. What you tolerate. So let's talk about things that you tolerate, whether it's in a relationship or in a business or whatever it is. Whatever you tolerate, that becomes your standard. Every time you repeatedly tolerate something, you quietly give permission to continue. So let's talk about a few things. Negative self-talk, constant lateness, always being late to meetings or work or whatever, broken promises to ourselves, disrespectful communication, you know. So who sometimes we're in environments, whether, I don't get too personal relationships or business or whatever it is, or partners or whatever it is, disrespectful communication. So when you start accepting that, that becomes your standard. Poor preparation when you're not prepared for doing things, avoiding responsibility. Every time you procrastinate, you're setting the standard. Remaining in an environment that weakens us. We talk about your circle of friends. Surround yourself with people that empower you. And so when you remain in certain environments and you're expecting growth, then you have an issue. Personal standards are not about controlling others. They're about deciding how you will think, respond, communicate, and behave for yourself. So on tolerating your personal standards, I want to say identify what you have been tolerating. Okay, so the three actions here. Identify what you've been tolerating. Establish a clear boundary or expectation and respond consistently when that standard is crossed. Okay? Take action. We talked about taking action, right, Shazia?
Yeah, and I think it's the way you then respond by how you create that constructive feedback. Because when I used to have difficult conversations, it would be, that's interesting. I like what you've said. However, and then go into the strategy and where we needed to bring that change. How do you think that impacts somebody else? If that question was posed to you or somebody spoke to you in that manner, how would it make you feel? And then take their response to make them realize, because some people don't even have self-awareness. And that's key because unless you don't show them that mirror, they're not going to even know that that's what they do. So you're absolutely right. I love it. And it's just, again, we still have to sometimes be subtle in our approach. Don't go in like a bull terrier, but the professional way of doing it. I like
Yes,
Harry
absolutely.
smiling. I can see him.
Yeah, we enabled that last week. Unfortunately, somehow the chat was not enabled. So this week we have chat enabled. Feel free to write your comments or anything you want to write in the chat. You know, sometimes we read them, sometimes we don't. But chat is enabled. So if anybody want to say anything or ask any questions or add anything, Shazia, if you can keep an eye out for the chats and anything relevant, obviously bring it.
I've just seen greetings, but people need to understand the power of doing it anyway. What would you say on that one, Maher? Because I think in the power of doing, but it's got to be quality of what you do, not doing for the sake of doing. For me, there's a fine line or a difference in terms of my standards and why I'm doing them. So, for example, last week when I couldn't make it due to a personal reason, I felt guilty. I really felt I had to hold my phone and think twice, how do I construct this text to Mahir? And I shouldn't feel guilty, but I did.
No.
And it's that, I think, finding that fine boundary. But it goes back to what you said about relationships. If you've got the right relationship, the other person will understand.
I love what Dr. K just said. It's okay to say no when standards are crossed. When we talk about leadership and I read the books, saying no is a lot of successful people know when and how to say no. So saying no is a big quality that we just sometimes it's hard for us as individuals because most of us are people pleaser. We just want to make other people happy, but saying no is something that will help you raise your standards for sure. You know, uh, so raise your identity before raising your expectations. Okay. So, so for example, we talk about sometimes affirmations or we talk to ourselves or things that we say in the morning or at night before we go to bed. So instead of saying, I'm trying to become disciplined, say, I'm a disciplined person, like if you already are. Okay. Instead of saying, I'm trying to communicate better, say, I communicate with clarity and respect. And here's another one. I hope to become a better leader. We say that all the time. I lead through my daily example. Okay. Subconsciously, the things that you already said that you're going to start doing them. And I'm a living testament to that. There's so many things that I've told myself before I've actually accomplished them, but I just kept telling myself day after day after day that I'm these things. And before I even knew it, subconsciously, just my body, the daily actions, the standards just started gravitating towards those affirmations that I told myself. So here's 3 actions for you guys. Define the person you are becoming. Choose behaviors that prove your identity and stop using the language that reinforces your old limitations. I'll say that one again. Stop using language that reinforces your old limitations. Okay. Create new language with your new expectations as you already accomplished them. Okay. So that to me was really big because we always talking about every single session about affirmations and the way you talk to yourself and mastering your inner voice. So that particular topic. Are there certain things that you say, Shazia?
Now, I love that point that you just made about what you do, because if you then put it on a piece of paper where you just draw an outline, the stick person, and then you then actually manifesting it. You've actually I always say that written connection that you make and then stick it somewhere. So it reminds you all the time. And then you will continue to reframe your language. And I totally agree that word of try is never going to get you where you want to be. I'm just like you. I remember when I wanted to do a lot and I said I will. And I remember my friends saying, I'm not even going to give you the date now because you're going to work out my age. But a lot of them would say, "Oh, how are you going to do that? It's not going to be possible now. You know, this is happening in your life." And I said, "I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I can tell you I will." And now I look back at where they are and where I am, and it was that determination. So it was that decision. So when you've
Yes.
decided you're going to do it, but you really don't know how. But then the universe paths the way how because you've made that subconscious decision to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of decisions, turn your standards into non-negotiable, daily non-negotiables. Okay. So and your standards must be clear enough to practice. Don't be vague with your wording to yourself when you're talking to yourself. Don't say, be better. Something like that's too vague. A measurable standard will sound something like, I prepare before important meetings. So be more specific. I keep the commitments I make. I do not make decisions while I'm emotionally reactive. That's a big one for me. When we talked about the amygdala effect and emotions and how that affects your reasoning. So I do not make decisions while, and I say this all the time to many people, my children especially, don't make decisions while you're hyped up or in an emotional state or too excited or too sad or too fearful. Take a breath, and if it's not the moment to make a decision, then you wait. Speak respectfully, even during disagreements. That's a big one. Sometimes conversations can get heated up and people may say the wrong thing. We always say that words can't be taken back. So that could be a standard that you could start working towards. I will speak respectfully even during disagreements or heated disagreements. I take responsibility before assigning a blame. I complete the most important task before distractions. Now, I, something I do in the morning, and I do this before I go to bed. I list the list of things that I need to do for the next day. I prepare, and there's going to be a lot of distractions in your life. You're going to get up, and you're going to get phone calls, and you're going to get emails, and you're going to want people wanting to gossip and chat and this and that. For me, I, I it's really important for me to finish that list before the end of the day. So I'm one that I do not procrastinate. I just start check, check, check. So that could be something that you can put on your list. I'm going to complete my most important task before I get distracted. So three things here. Make the standard specific. So when you putting together your standards for yourself, make them specific. Don't make them too vague. Okay. And attach it to a daily situation or routine. And review your performance honestly each evening. Okay. So be honest with yourself. Review, just recap the day. You know, what did I accomplish? What did I lack to accomplish? What am I going to do better the next day? So, Shazi, do you have anything to add on that one?
Yeah, I think with your deciding what you're going to do, just decide. I mean, we get lots to do, don't we, Myra? And I just think, yeah,
Yes.
even when I was in leading schools, it would be, what do I do? What do I delegate? What do I ditch? What do I delay? The 4 Ds we
Yeah.
used to call it, because your desk is piled up. You've got to start. But I love I love post-it notes. I love that flicking it away, done, done. Some people like ticking. So for me, prioritization is what you need. You do need to let it go and you do need to pass it on to someone. They may not be the same as you. We'll never find the clone of ourselves. However, we can't do everything ourselves, can we, Maya? We still need to delegate.
Yeah, I know that some of you guys are probably driving or at work and just listening, but if you're able to maybe write this next part down, um, uh, go ahead and write them down. It's kind of like a live exercise I want everybody to do together. And we don't answer, I don't want to, we don't need to answer these questions, but I want you to write these questions down, or at least remember them if you can, and I'll be happy to share them with you later. So, number one. What is one area of my life where my current results are below what I say I want? I'll repeat it again. What is one area of my life where my current results are below what I say that I want? Okay. Number two, what behavior or excuse have I been tolerating? Number three, what new standard will I establish beginning today after this call? What new standard will I establish beginning today? And number four, what daily action will I prove that this is now my standard? Okay, so it's one thing to write them down. The other thing is, what are you going to do to create your new standard? So, what's one daily action that will prove that this is my new standard? Okay, so here's the sentence. Beginning today, I no longer accept blank for myself. My new standard is blank, and I will demonstrate it by blank. Okay. So again, I'd be happy to share with you if you guys are interested in writing these down or create your own questions for yourself based on today's conversation.
So
So
spontaneously, Maher, on that, I will no longer tolerate excuses myself that I have no time to read. I've got two books sitting over there that I need to read. So I need to start reading at least several, well, 5 pages a day. And my children are going to hold me to account to make sure that I do that. Because I think you need to have an accountability person. If I don't have accountability, I will kind of sneak it to the side and think, oh, no
yeah,
one's going to know. But if someone's going to come and check on me, doesn't matter who, it's just how we are as humans. You then do it. That's
yes.
how we are. We will do it. So I've always learned that find somebody in your circle and make them an accountability partner for your goals. That raises.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Accountability partners are great. You know, people that it's always funner in groups, you know, when you have people there rooting for each other and supporting each other and holding each other accountable. I want to talk a little bit about us as I know there's a lot of adults. We have some youth on this call, and we've had ages as young as 13 all the way up to 80. And people ask me, "Oh, so who is this call for?" It's for everybody, and it doesn't matter your age or what you do. These calls, these mindset matters is for everybody. It's for me too. You know, I'm benefiting as much as everybody on this call. Believe me. So something that as a parent, I want to, or let's say a coach, maybe I think might be a coach or a couple coaches on here. Some of you guys are coaches. When we're training students, when we're talking to our children, sometimes our standards for them are higher than their own standards, you know. And I've had this conversation today with one of my kids. My standards can be higher than your standards, okay? You have to want it more than me wanting it for you. Yes or no? You know, Shazia, you're a parent. Sometimes we want for our children more than they want for themselves. So I think what these sessions help us establish is teaching our kids and our students that why do they want to create these new standards for themselves? What is it going to help them accomplish as individuals as they grow older? You know, better jobs, better athletes, better, you know, whatever. And so, do you agree with that, Shazia, or
Yeah, and I think you've nailed it with the why. They need to have a purpose. They need to have an emotional connection because if you don't, it's like, I always use my weight example. If I didn't have that vision of who I wanted to be, I would not have continued to pursue on the journey. And it's that why. And then you've got to be emotionally connected to it to make it happen. And that's with children as well. If they don't know, when they go through school, high school, many of
Yeah,
them don't even know what they want to be, what they want to do. They've got no direction. They're like, they don't feel there's a purpose for why are we doing algebra? Where's that need in life? So they need that context. And that's where the standards then fit in when they know why I'm doing what I'm doing. If they don't see that, it's a bit like you said about the journey. They're on a journey, but they don't know where they're going and why they will lose their motivation. We lose motivation as adults.
yeah, yeah. Even as adults, for sure. And so let's create a weekly challenge. Okay. I love challenges. I love challenges. You know, me with weekly challenges, I'm a very competitive person. So, and the challenges are for myself. You know, obviously, I started the push-up challenge, 1 month turned into a year and a half. Let's start a weekly challenge. So for the next 7 days, let's do it. Let's make it easy. Let's start a 7-day challenge. So each participant select one personal standard, okay, and track it daily. Okay. So let me give you some examples. This is a great example. Keep keeping every commitment. Okay. So keeping every commitment, that could be a 7-day challenge, like every single day, keeping every commitment. Here's another one. Arriving prepared and on time. How many of us would love to have that challenge? Okay. Arriving prepared and on time. Eliminating negative self-talk. That is a huge, 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 huge. Eliminating negative self-talk. Talking to yourself always in a positive way. Okay. How about completing the day's most important task? So every day you have your task, your goal for 7 days to always complete the task of the day, your most important task of the day. Or here's another one, giving full attention during important conversations. Sometimes we get distracted, we got a little bit of ADHD, ADD. And so sometimes, how about focusing, whether it's a spouse or a business meeting or a business partner, giving full attention during every important conversation you have. Okay.
I'm going
So
to add one.
yeah,
Haven't
add one.
felt
Yeah.
you're sitting at no mobile phones at the dinner table or even in
Love it.
conversations because they are the biggest distraction I find. I absolutely despise when I'm having a conversation with somebody and suddenly they get distracted by the phone and I'm like, are they listening to me or are they busy on the phone? What do I do? Do I continue with the conversation or do I hit a pause?
Yeah, that's funny that you said that because last night during dinner, Malik he grabbed everybody's phone. We weren't on our phones. We had him on the table, and I think some of us were tempted to read a message or to do something. So he grabbed everybody's phone from the table and just put them on a pile on the side. He's like, "Okay, it's dinner time, family time, no phones." And that's something that we've always practiced in our home for many years. We don't do phones at dinner. Dinner is a time we very rarely have time for interaction with our family, right? Because we spend more time at work than we do at home. And so the little time you get with your family, make it quality time. Now, I remember last year during one of our sessions, I posted a video with a family time and everybody's sitting in the living room, but each and every member of the family, I think it was like 8 of them, were on their cell phone. And so, unfortunately, that's kind of almost today's reality. That's family time nowadays, where everybody's on their phone. And I caught myself during one evening. This is just really funny, but this was a while ago. We were all together in a room and we were all on our phones. And I just started sending a message asking people right next to me, like whether it was my wife or my son or my daughter, a question. And they look at me really funny. It's like, I'm right here. And I was trying to prove a point. So, but yeah, in my home, no phone during dinner time. So that could be an amazing one, Shazi. I'm glad you did that. So every evening, you're going to answer, did my behavior today meet the standards of the person I'm becoming? Okay. Did my behavior today meet the standard of the person I am becoming? So everybody challenge. We got 49 people on this call. I need everybody to make a challenge,
But
7-day
one,
challenge.
I'm going to start 10 push-ups a day. There you go. And I've said it publicly now. So
All right.
I've got 49 people listening to me because
And,
it's
and,
something I did start and then I kind of stopped. And right, there we go. 10. I'm going to
and
start with 10
yeah.
and then I'm going to try and build it up. Right, Maher, next time we're at the airport, I'll join the club, the men's club with the push-ups.
Absolutely. And you know what? Is not only did you say it publicly, this Zoom call is being recorded. So we'll be able to play it back for you. Okay. So raising your standards does not mean becoming perfect. Okay. Just for everybody in this call, it doesn't mean becoming perfect. So it doesn't mean being too harsh or judgmental. Okay. It means developing enough respect for your future self. Okay. That you stop repeating and accepting behaviors that are keeping you from achieving your goals. Okay. So you do not need to transform your life with just from one day to the next. Okay. And you don't need to do it through an emotional decision. You transform it by establishing a new minimum and living it consistently. Okay, we always talked about achieving goals. So establish a new minimum for yourself and try to live it consistently and create challenges for yourself. Hey, I'm going to do this for 7 days. 7 days become 21, and 21 it becomes a habit. So your future will not be built only by what you hope for. Okay. It's going to be built by what you require from yourself every single day. And there's a couple affirmations that I like, and we did them at the beginning last session. But as we're approaching the end, I'd like to do some closing affirmations. And I'm just going to say these for myself. I respect myself enough to raise my standard. Okay. I keep the commitments I make to myself. My actions reflect the person I'm becoming. I no longer tolerate habits that weaken my future. I think higher, speak stronger, and show up with purpose. And my standards are raising my life, and my life is raising with them. So I'm raising the standards of my life, and my life is raising with my standards. Okay, those are just a couple affirmations that I wrote down earlier this morning that I just wanted to share with the group. Shazia, do you have any as
Oh,
we're
I
wrapping
love
up
the
this call?
phenomenal affirmations because it's absolutely true. You've got to remind yourself. But before you wrap up, I just wanted to go to the chat. I've got a couple of people asking, is there a delayed reaction when you're making a decision or doing a particular task? Um, then how do you recover after falling off track without feeling discouraged? If we all made conscious decisions to be here today, yep, you guys did. Well done. Round of applause. And that's a weekly habit. Um, and then there was, I think, somebody asked around, you mentioned, Maher, earlier you said examine your patterns and not your promises. What was a second action after that? So they're going to watch the recording.
Yes, yeah, we were watching. Well, I'm gonna do. And did you read "Preparation is Key"? Thinking, oh, that was my wife, Kristen. Hi, honey. Staging necessary items the night before. Yes. Place keys, shoes, bags, pick up outfits the night before. Awesome. Calculate departure time needed for arriving on time and adding 15 minutes. Yes. Lastly, having the mindset. Oops, I lost you.
While loving the
Hey,
chat.
Sandra. Yeah. That was awesome. That was awesome. Let me share a PP. I know we're at 34, but I want to close with this. Okay. Let me share my screen. Where is it? Here we go. All righty. We talked about goals are destinations. Discipline is the vehicle. Standards determine the condition in which you are willing to travel. Okay. This is a recap of today. Your results reveal your current standards. Okay. Are your results aligned with what you say matters? So the three actions: examine your patterns instead of your promises, identify where your actions contradict what you say matters, and choose one area where minimum acceptable behavior must change. Three, raise your identity before raising your expectations. So who are you becoming? And do your actions support that identity? The three actions we talked about is define the person you're becoming, choose behaviors that prove that identity, and stop using language that reinforce your old limitations. Okay? Turn standards into daily non-negotiables. So what standards will become your daily non-negotiables? Okay, so make the standard specific, not too vague. Attach it to a daily situation or routine. Review your performance honestly. This is a big one, honestly, every evening. And lastly, what you tolerate becomes your standard. Okay. What have you been tolerating that is lowering your standard? So the three actions: identify what you've been tolerating, establish a clear boundary or expectation, and respond consistently when that standard is crossed. Righty? And the affirmations I just said: I respect myself through enough to raise my standards. I keep the commitments I make to myself. My actions reflect the person I'm becoming. I no longer tolerate habits that weaken my future. I think higher, speak stronger, and show up with purpose. My standards are rising, and my life is rising with them. So I wanted to put this together as a recap especially since this call is being recorded. That way we can, if we need to go to the end and just do a quick recap of what we spoke, it's fantastic. So again, uh, thank you all so much for being here. It really means a lot to Shazi and I. It's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful to see people interacting and making comments and being in the chat and because we're doing this together. It's not just Shazi and I. We're all doing it together as a group. We're raising our standards together as a group. We're holding each other accountable, and we'll be here next week to continue with our next session. I'm going to wish everybody a beautiful, amazing day. We have people from all over the world, so have a great morning, great day, great evening, wherever you're at. Many blessings. I'll keep you guys in my prayers as usual, and I love you all. Bye for now.